Hello, everybody. Welcome into the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today, joined by Nolan and Jake. There is a lot to get into today. Some news around mandatory minicamp that has started for about half of the teams in the league. We'll talk about some more stuff surrounding the NIL changes with the House settlement. NBA Finals is about to tip off as well. We'll preview Game 3, the Knicks' new head coach, and much more. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with us here on a beautiful Tuesday, June 10th. But like I was saying, we are going to get here starting off with the big topic of the day, that being, of course, NBA Finals Game 3. We talked a lot about the disparity between Game 1 and Game 2. We talked about what each team needed to do in order to get a massive Game 3 win, and we'll get a little more into that as well. But for starters here, is this a must-win game for the Indiana Pacers, Jake?
I don't know. I'm going back and forth, honestly. I think one of game 3 or 4 obviously is must win. They need to win at least one on their home court. Obviously, it's much easier if you get that win in game 3 and take the early series lead. You take a little less pressure off of yourselves heading into game 4. I think it's a game that you definitely want to try to win for sure, obviously. I don't know if it's a must win, but it certainly puts a lot more pressure on the Pacers if they're not able to pull out this game 3 in front of their home crowd when this Oklahoma City Thunder team is playing some phenomenal basketball all around, playing some of the best defense we've ever seen. They need to be able to get a win on their home court in order to have a chance to win this series, I think.
You talk about it going back home, and I think that's a huge piece of the puzzle here. The Pacers at home this postseason, 6-2. Pacers coming off of a loss this postseason are 4-0. Now, the other piece of this puzzle is the Thunder on the road. They've been dominant, but they have been just over 500, 4-3 this postseason on the road. Is that the kind of advantage that's going to give the Pacers a huge jump up, at least early in this game where they struggled, Nolan, or is that just kind of a wash right now?
I mean, I wouldn't really call it a wash. This team, like you said, they're 4-0 since losing a game, and I think tonight could be one of those nights where they can make it 5-0. I think they're playing in Indiana. They're in their home court. They are there playing in front of their home crowd, and they are just playing. Yeah, we know we just saw them a loss in game 2. A pretty big 16-point loss, but they weren't getting manhandled. They were playing good, tough basketball, and they were making some shots, but they just couldn't get it done. I think that even with them, being back there tonight in Indiana, they're still going to be fine. I think this is a game where, like you said already, they've already been down. They're 4-0 since losing a game, and I think tonight's going to be it's going to be getting to go 5-0. I think this is a bounce back game for them. Even though OKC has been the more dominant team this postseason between these two teams, they have led. OKC has led for every second besides that 0.3 seconds in that first game. OKC's been playing better. So, but even though I think this is a big bounce back game for Indiana, they can kind of come back in the front of their home crowd, just kind of bounce back, get the energy up, get a little 2-1 lead. Because I believe this is the must-win game for Indiana. I think if they lose this game, OKC will then go on to win Game 4 to take a 3-1 lead, going back to OKC for Game 5. And I don't think Indiana can handle that. I think this is a must-win game for them tonight, so they have a little leeway in case they lose Game 4 to go back to OKC with the tied game series 2-2. And I think that's important. Having that cushion to if we lose one more, it's fine. But we're still 2 losses away from getting out tonight. In my opinion, is a must-win game for Indiana.
Yeah, definitely a very important game for Indiana. One of the keys to the game is going to be their star, their big number 1 option. in Tyrese Halliburton. Tyrese Halliburton, if you look at his stats from the first 3 quarters in both game 1 and 2, they have been abysmal. One of the things that has been really tough for him is to get to his spots. Lou Dort has been playing incredible defense on him, and that's the specialty. That's the calling card of this Oklahoma City Thunder. Is there some kind of adjustment, Jake, that you think Halliburton can make heading back home here to feed off and get a little bit more aggressive and be a little better in the first 3 quarters? Maybe not dig themselves too deep into a hole where they have to make these magical comebacks.
I think the big thing for Tyrese Halliburton is just trying to tap into that fourth quarter mindset earlier into the game. We see this guy kind of flip a switch once those last 12 minutes of the game hit, right? This is a guy that when the lights are brightest, that's when we see Tyrese Halliburton really kind of perform at his best and shine. But this is a guy that if he's able to kind of tap into that earlier into the game, look for your shot a little earlier, try to get a little more rhythm going in the first, second quarter, and, hopefully get 10, 12 points maybe in the first half, just so you get a little bit of momentum, a little bit of rhythm for when that fourth quarter hits and you know that Tyrese Halliburton's really going to turn it on. I think if he's just a little more aggressive in trying to get to his spots, trying to get his shot off early on in the game, it's going to help him and the Indiana Pacers later on down the line.
For sure. And you talked a little bit about getting that quick start, but the Thunder, on the other hand, that's been what they do really every single time, regardless win or loss. They've gotten out to these fast starts. Defensively for Indiana, is there, again, this is something that they need to focus on. Maybe it's more on the offensive end, playing at that fast pace and not turning the ball over. But what kind of adjustments do you think they need to make, again, just outside of Halliburton, as a team as a whole, to not fall into these 20-point, 15-point deficits that they've fallen into in games 1 and 2s, Nolan?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, it's a hard thing to do because, I would say, you want to play a lot more man-to-man. You got to play a lot closer and tighter defense. With that, SGA is known for, getting to the lane and being able to draw fouls. That could be a big problem. You don't want him going to the line because he's a very, very good free throw shooter. He has obviously had a lot of practice this year with being at the line. Just throughout the entire postseason and regular season, he is a really good free throw shooter. So you can't just be guarding him face on and expect him not to try to draw a foul and get to the free throw line. So that's what I would want. I'd want them to play, man-to-man face guard defense, but on some people it's easier. When you're playing a center like Hartenstein or Chet, it's a lot easier. But when you're playing a very versatile guard like SGA, that's not as easy. Playing the zone, it's also, it's good to play the zone, but it's also, pretty hard the situation because, when you're playing in the zone, stretch bigs are able to take advantage of that. Chet Holmgren, a very good stretch big, very young, very athletic. He's a really good three-point shooter for his size of like 7'1", 7'2". He's a very good three-point shooter. He cannot leave open on a wing. Hartenstein is, he's not as, efficient beyond the arc as, compared to Chet, but he still can shoot it. So it's just a weird situation. You can't play face guard. You can't be guarding him. You can't, honestly, if I'm the Pacers, realistically, there really isn't an easy way to do it, but if I had to play between like a real like example, just between zone or man to man, I'm going man to man. I'm putting my best defender on SGA all night and letting the rest of the team just kind of let them work. I mean, face to face, one on one defense is the easiest defense to play in my opinion. It's just you on one on one, just to let the best man win. And I think that's the best way to do it. Considering, I think that if we play the zone, I think that Oklahoma is a lot faster. They're a lot quicker. They can collapse the defense and they can make a lot more plays out of it. I think if they're playing man to man, I think Indiana's a fast enough team to keep up with anybody trying to drive. They're also tough enough or strong enough to be able to play with anybody that want in the paint. Whether it be any big, any guard trying to drive, they can match that and make some good defensive stops. So realistically, from the Pacers, I'm trying to play maybe some tighter defense, maybe man on man, see where it goes. If it's working, keep with it. If it's not, switch to something else. Maybe like a 2-3 zone, 3-2 zone, whatever. You have to make adjustments, but I think the man-to-man is probably the best way to go for them tonight.
Yeah, no, definitely one of the key things is the play of Shea and just overall that big three for the Thunder, right? You have a MVP, one of the best guard seasons we have ever seen in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's getting to his spots at ease against this Pacers team. Not one person on that team can really contain him, and we've seen that. 38 and 34 points in the first two. But one of the other parts of it that maybe gets swept under the rug a little bit is how important the play of Chet Holmgren and J-Dub are, Jalen Williams are, for this Thunder squad. When they aren't comfortable shooting, if they are a little bit out of rhythm, it becomes very much iso ball. It becomes, Shai, can you win this game for us? Which there's no doubt he can, right? Again, 38 and 34 points in 2 games in the NBA Finals. But I think the key for the Pacers is to make the rest of the team uncomfortable. We saw guys off the bench like Caruso, like Wiggins step up last game in game 2. If they can avoid having that unlikely hero on a very deep team, it's going to be a lot harder for the Thunder to go ahead and make a unsurmountable lead early on. But is there a way to contain Shai at all with how he's been playing? Do the Pacers have a defender that they can throw on him in game 3 or double team him in game 3 to find a way to at least slow him down, keep him at least inefficient? Like the game they won, he shot around 50% from the field, which is pretty inefficient for Shai, who's usually shooting closer to that 60-65% mark. Is there some kind of strategy that we could see to stop or at least slow down Shai?
I don't know. I think the easiest way is just get him his points, and try to focus on some of their depth guys. You let Alex Caruso and Aaron Wiggins combine for 38 points in game 2. If you try to focus on that and limiting Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, Shai's going to get his 30, 34, 38, whatever it be, probably every night of this NBA Finals. So I think you maybe don't emphasize as much on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and try to take away some of those supporting pieces to kind of suffocate them and force it to be all on SGA's shoulders to the point where it's almost a lot more manageable for the Pacers to try to go win this game.
Yeah. We take a look at this, though. Game 3 has had a lot of talk leading up to it. Heads to Indiana for the first time. Start with you, Nolan. Who do you have in this one?
Yeah. I've been saying it for the past few days now. This is a must-winning game for Indiana. They cannot fall down. They cannot fall in the series. They really can't. I think if they fall, then the series will ultimately already be over. Climbing back against OKC is almost near impossible, just how good and how consistent they are as a team and how good they can play when they're above. I think this is a must-win game for Indiana. Even though I have OKC winning the series, I think Indiana will win this game tonight. I think they know that the stakes are on the line. I think that they know that if they fall down short in the series, that they will be very hard for them to come back. And I think tonight they'll play with that ability so they don't have to fall, so they won't be falling in the series. I think tonight it's a win for Indiana with their first game on their home court, and hopefully I'm right because I really do want to see the series go pretty deep. I don't want to see a 5-1 series or 4-1 series win get done in 5. I want this to go to 7. I want every series to go to 7, but I want this one to most go to 7 because it's the finals. So tonight I have Indiana in 3 or winning game 3 and taking the series lead 2-1.
Yeah, I'm gonna go the other way, I think, in this one and pick the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think just the way they've been playing on both ends of the ball, it's gonna be too much for Indiana. Even though Indiana is on their home court, I just think how dominant Oklahoma City looked in game 2, I think that's gonna continue in game 3. We're gonna see Oklahoma City make it a little more competitive, I think, in this one. But I think it's still Oklahoma City taking the lead 2-1.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you guys, or at least agree with you, Jake, here. I had Thunder are going to win this. We talked a little bit about it, but, I mean, outside of the defense from that Thunder, giving them fits, Tyrese Halliburton really struggling, the fact that the Pacers haven't won a Game 3 all playoff run long. They've won in 5 games, and in 6 games, and in all of those series, they've lost Game 3. Now, that's less of a trend and more of just one of those things that happens. But when you take a look at this team, they haven't shown the ability to consistently, I will say, break through that Thunder defense without turning the ball over and playing sloppy basketball, and that concerns me a lot. Because of that, I'm taking the Thunder here in Game 3. It's not going to be an easy road for the for the Pacers to come back, but it should be a really good game. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention over to the NFL. A little bit of news surrounding Aaron Rodgers, the new Steelers quarterback, new Steelers signal caller. He was allegedly the third choice this offseason for the Steelers. How is this going to affect them? How is it going to affect Aaron Rodgers, who famously pretty big ego over there? And is that why it took him so long to make his decision? We'll talk about all that and more coming up next here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.